Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something vast, really vast, like try to imagine the ocean but it has anger issues vast. This one's for anyone who's ever stood by the shore and wondered, what if the sea was staring back at me? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing who's drifting with me tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift, not in a poetic way like literally, you're drifting, like a sad little breadcrumb in a cosmic bowl of soup. Salt clings to your skin, your hair's a mess, and the air smells like someone just opened a bottle of ancient ocean. Everything around you is blue. But not peaceful Mediterranean vacation blue. This is the kind of blue that says, you've wandered into a place that forgot what sunlight tastes like. There's no shore, no boat, just you, and that suspicious sound that kind of sounds like laughter. Yeah, laughter. Not the comforting kind, the echoing, deep, rumbling kind like thunder bubbling up from under your feet. Then the sea starts to shiver. You don't know how, but it does. The water trembles, your chest tightens, great bubbles begin rising from the deep, as if the ocean just exhaled and remembered you were here. Oh look, a little land creature lost its way, says a voice. It's not coming from above, it's coming from everywhere, and somehow you just know you're not the main character in this ocean. From the darkness below, something stirs. You try not to look. Every survival instinct screams, don't look. So of course, being you look. Someone is rising. His silhouette is massive, built like a cathedral, but angrier. His skin shimmers like wet stone, hair floats in tangled strands like angry seaweed, and in one hand, a trident longer than your last relationship and definitely sharper. Poseidon. You don't need subtitles, you just know. There's something ancient in his eyes, the kind of ancient that remembers when continents weren't quite nailed down yet. This place, he rumbles, is not for creatures with lungs and fragile little necks. You glance down and realize you're treading water, except you're not. You're floating, upright, effortlessly, like logic just clocked out. You open your mouth to explain what exactly? That this is all a misunderstanding? That you left your towel back on land? But no words come, no breath either. Poseidon stares. Not cruelly, not kindly, just like someone assessing whether you're worth the emotional energy. He says, you've not spilled oil into my sea, yet there's still time for you to learn. And with a single flick of his hand, the ocean shifts. Not just waves, the whole ocean, like a mood swing you can drown in. You're pulled, not swirled, not toss-guided. The water bends around you like it's decided you're important now. Bubbles surround you like champagne in a glass way out of your price range. Then something opens. Not a door, not a gate, a passage, long, rippling, glowing faintly with coral light, and somewhere at the end, something waiting. You catch flashes, lost helmets, swords, sand-covered statues, the wreckage of empires that dared to travel too far. This place remembers everything, and it's showing you the receipt. Poseidon's voice rolls through the water again. You're dreaming, he says, but I'm not. Yeah, that doesn't make you feel better. He points toward the end of the passage. You will see, you will learn, and eventually you will remember. And you wet, overwhelmed, 78% terrified, and 22% intrigued you start to fall. Not dropful, not panicful. More like the moment when you finish a really good book and suddenly feel too aware of your own thoughts. That kind of fall. Down below, the light fades. The current hums. Somewhere, a whale sings a single note in the background like ocean ASMR. You pass ruined temples and spirals of shells older than the gods of land. You realize something obvious and terrible. People fear Zeus because he strikes, but sailors pray to Poseidon because when the ocean gets mad, it doesn't just strike out swallows. And now, here you are. No raft, no rescue, only you, and the god who never asked to be worshipped, just respected. Poseidon, keeper of the deep, forgotten brother of Olympus, and the storm beneath your feet. It's funny how something as elegant as a Trident 3 perfect spears curving like waves can also be the universe's most aggressive exclamation point. Especially when it's in the hand of Poseidon, god of oceans, earthquakes, horses, and apparently mood swings. You're still floating, but the water feels heavier now, not in pressury emotionally, like the sea itself is holding its breath. And there, ahead of you, Poseidon is standing on a platform of smooth black rock rising up from nowhere. His trident rests against his shoulder like it's no big deal, like he didn't invent it as a weapon to shake mountains loose and split islands in half when he feels a little underappreciated. Do you know what power tastes like? He asks. You don't answer. Smart choice. He looks off into the depths, and with one step you're beside him. Don't ask how, dream logic, ocean magic. 1 second you're floating, next you're on a stone with a sea god who looks like he could wrestle a tsunami and win with sarcasm alone. It tastes like salt, he continues, not the gentle kind, the kind that dries your lips and stings your eyes and lingers long after the storm is over. And with that, he slams his trident into the rock. No warning, no countdown, no health bar. The impact is everything. A bolt of force shoots through the stone, sending cracks spidering out like angry lightning. The ocean groans, not the water, the ocean, the whole thing. Somewhere in the distance, a sea ridge collapses. Fish scatter like gossip. And then, silence. He lifts the trident again, calmly, like he just flicked a light switch. I don't do this out of spite, he says, but don't mistake calm seas for mercy. You realize something? Poseidon isn't angry right now. Not truly. He's demonstrating, like a parent lifting the corner of a rug to show where all the crumbs are hiding. He points the trident toward the horizon. The ocean parts literally. A trench opens, revealing dark, jagged cliffs beneath. For a moment, the sea forgets how to be wet. It just stands there, tall and trembling, like a massive liquid library being told to hush. You think Zeus rules because he throws lightning, he says, shaking his head. Lightning scares shepherds. I rule because when I'm upset, coastlines move. A pause. You try not to blink too loudly. Poseidon drags the trident gently across the stone, and with each touch, visions bloom in the water around you. A fleet of ships torn apart by whirlpools the size of stadiums. A mountain village crumbling under a sudden earthquake. A great sea beast rising at his core, wrapping itself around a whole harbor. A peaceful bay, shimmering with moonlight, right before he drowns it in silence. And then, a scene that doesn't look destructive, just tired. Poseidon sitting on a rock at the edge of the world, trident laid across his lap, staring out at the sea like he's waiting for it to surprise him again. I was given dominion over oceans, he murmurs, but no one asks what the ocean wants. Everyone just wants calm waves and smooth sailing. He chuckles, low and bitter. No one thanks the sea when it lets them live. You don't know what to say. You kind of want to offer him a seashell and a coupon for free therapy. I've broken cities for less than the silence of mortals, he says. I've summoned typhoons because someone dared carve my face wrong on a coin. He pauses, then smirks. To be fair, it was a very bad carving. And then, just like that, the trident softens its glow. The trench closes, the waves fold back in like a fitted sheet expertly tucked. The sea returns to stillness, but it's not peaceful, it's poised. Poseidon turns to you. You still think of gods as metaphors, he says. Symbols, stories. You forget we were the reason people built temples, not the result of them. A ripple runs through the air as he plants the trident upright beside him. The very water around it bows, like it remembers something it isn't allowed to say out loud. "You're here to learn," he says. "And if you truly want to understand me, you'll need to see what happens when gods are ignored, or worse, used as decoration." He takes a step forward and gestures toward the sea. "Come," he says, "let me show you a city that dared forget my name." And you, small, salt-soaked, still blinking at the rawness of a god's wrath, you follow. Not because you want to, because you know the ocean isn't done with you yet. There's a moment right before it happens where the water around you changes temperature, just slightly, like the ocean is holding its breath. Poseidon says nothing. He just lifts the trident, draws a slow arc in the sea, and the current obeys. And you drop. Not full descent, smooth, controlled, as if the water has turned into something more polite. A hallway, a memory, a descent into a forgotten dream wrapped in coral and regret. Atlantis. It doesn't rise to meet you, it waits, quiet, dignified, as if aware it was once a jewel and still believes it is, despite what history books and skeptical YouTubers say. The water clears as you descend. Fish dart past in nervous schools. Seaweed flows like drapes in an ancient ballroom. And then, there it is. A city carved from stone and pride. Not ruins, not debris. A full city. Towers spire upward like fossilized coral. Bridges arc across glowing canals. Giant statues of figures long erased by myth stand with cracked shoulders and proud eyes. Everything is bathed in a soft, phosphorescent glow like moonlight filtered through memory. Poseidon stands at your side, not speaking yet, watching you watch. You don't need to ask. You know, this is what he built. Atlantis wasn't an accident. It was Poseidon's statement, his flex. A city that didn't just float, it thrived, built on knowledge and salt. Engineered by pride, fueled by his love for one woman, and lost to time because, well, because people are people. And people forget. "You see," he finally says, voice low like waves against marble, "we didn't wait for land to love us, we made our own world." He gestures to a temple in the distance, rising in tears like a wedding cake made of volcanic stone and crushed pearl. "That was hers," he says. You follow his gaze and feel the weight of her name before he even speaks it. Cleito. The mortal woman, the one he loved enough to raise an empire beneath the waves, the one who bore him 10 sons, the one whose name never made it to the stars. "Humans always ask how Atlantis fell," Poseidon says, walking slowly. "They never ask why it was allowed to rise." You step forward through the water, but here inside Atlantis it's not really water anymore. It's something in between, a preserved memory, a liquid museum. You pass murals carved into coral, Poseidon bestowing rings of power upon his sons, a central palace that spun like a wheel, and markets filled with merchants selling sea foam perfumes and jellyfish lanterns. Atlantis was balance, he says, art and justice, storm and structure, and then you turn a corner and the tone changes. The carvings get harsher, fewer curves, more spears, more gold, less harmony. They forgot where their power came from, Poseidon says flatly, and when mortals forget, they build towers, too many towers. One mural shows a son, the eldest, probably standing above the others, crown too big for his head, pointing outward toward the land above. They wanted more, Poseidon growls, always more. The ocean was never enough. They turned on each other, started wars in my name, built ships with hulls sharpened for conquest. He stops in front of a cracked column. You can see a long gash in the stone, as if a claw, maybe a god's trident, slashed it clean. I beg them, he says quietly, not as their god, as their father. And for a moment, Poseidon doesn't look like a force of nature. He looks like a dad. A furious, disappointed, utterly exhausted dad whose kids wrecked the house and then blamed the wind. I could have spared them, he whispers, but mercy is not something the ocean does twice. The city around you begins to shift. Not collapse, remember. A low rumble travels through the water. Doors creak open where there are no hinges. You see a plaza, and in the center a statue of Poseidon and Cleito, hand in hand. But someone had tried to erase her face. Someone didn't want to remember. And Poseidon, he never forgot. You wonder what happened to Atlantis, he says, stepping back. It never sank, it was buried. And with that, he lifts the trident again. You brace yourself for another quake, another surge of wrath, but it doesn't come. Instead, the sea goes still, and the memory ends. You're rising now, leaving Atlantis behind, not because it's rejecting you, but because Poseidon has decided you've seen enough. The city fades beneath your feet, not with anger, with sadness. A lesson in stone and salt, carved too deep for time to wash away. As you breach the surface again, the air tastes different. And Poseidon, dripping, silent, eternal, meets your gaze and says, "Now you know what happens when gods fall in love." You're not sure when the ocean turns to sky or when Atlantis fades from your ankles. One moment you're surrounded by flickering shadows of a drowned empire, the next, your feet touch soft sand. You look around. It's not a beach, it's a memory made of coastline. Wind tumbles through tall golden grasses. The air is heavy with the smell of salt and blooming myrtle. A hill rises in the distance, where a stone house leans gently into the slope as if it's always been there. And in front of that house, a girl. She's not glowing, she's not draped in celestial fabrics or accompanied by harp music. She's barefoot, wind-tangled hair. Her dress is too short on one side, like it's been mended more times than she can count. And she's laughing at a goat that refuses to eat the fig she's offering it. "That's her," Poseidon says softly. He's beside you again, voice barely louder than the sea breeze. "Cleito." You watch her chase the goat. It wins. And something cracks a little in your understanding of him. Poseidon, the earth shaker, the seething storm wrapped in salt and thunder, fell in love with this? Yes. And the way he says her name, like a tide that still returns to the same shore after 1,000 years, you understand why. "She didn't ask for anything," he murmurs. "Didn't try to impress, she just existed, like the sea itself." You glance at him. His expression is unreadable, but his grip tightens slightly on the trident. "I came to that hill to destroy it," he says. "There was a city planning to build a monument to Zeus. On my coast, I was going to crack the earth and let the sea swallow them." You raise an eyebrow. Typical Tuesday behavior. "But then she was there," he continues, "with a basket of olives and a dog that hated me on sight, and He stops. "I forgot why I was angry." A beat passes. "And that," he adds grimly, "was unacceptable." You stifle a smile. You watch as a younger Poseidon, less adorned, but still unmistakable, appears beside Cleito on the hill. He tries to speak. She interrupts. He tries again. She laughs. He tries a third time, and she just hands him a plum and tells him to stop scowling so much. "She thought I was a fisherman," he says. "Told me my beard made me look unreliable." Your jaw drops. Did she survive saying that? "She married me," he shrugs. "So technically no." And just like that, you're pulled forward years in a blink. The little stone house becomes a palace of polished seashell and marble. Cleito stands at the center of it all, not as a queen draped in diamonds, but as a mother. 10 sons surround her, each more chaotic than the last. You notice one has turned an octopus into a hat, another is trying to ride a dolphin through a fountain, the third appears to be stabbing a loaf of bread. Poseidon sighs. "They were loud," he admits. "She said they were just like me." The palace bustles with joy, pride, ambition, but underneath it you feel it a slow vibration, like a rumble too far down to notice unless you're listening closely. "They were born with my name," Poseidon says, "but not my restraint." He walks through the memory as it plays, untouched by it. Cleito believed love could soften ambition. I believed power could protect her. We were both wrong. You see it then, Cleito alone, years later, standing at a balcony overlooking the city that once danced around her. The boys are grown, the laughter is gone, the towers are taller. The statue's more self-congratulatory. They stopped listening to her, Poseidon says, and I let them. His voice is quieter now. Less God, more ghost. I built Atlantis to honor her, he says. But empires don't honor, they expand, they consume. You watch as Plato walks into the sea one morning, not out of sadness but out of return. Like the tide, like everything that once came from water must go back. I never found her, Poseidon says. She left before the flood, or maybe she was the flood. And suddenly you realize Atlantis didn't fall because of arrogance alone. It fell because Poseidon, mighty Poseidon, tried to create something permanent in a world that worships change. She wasn't mine to keep, he whispers. The sky begins to fade. The waves roll up over the shore, the memory dissolves like foam between your fingers, and you're left standing in water up to your knees, facing a god who once tried to love the land like it was the sea. She made me gentler, he says, for a while. He turns away. The wind shifts. And in the distance, where the horizon meets the sky, you see the silhouette of a woman on a hill, holding a basket, laughing at a goat. Some wars begin with thunder, others with silence. This one, it started with a gift. You're standing now in a wide, sunlit plain, except the sun is too clean, too symmetrical, like someone adjusted the lighting settings just for dramatic tension. Marble steps rise before you, leading to a half-built city perched on a rocky outcrop. No name yet, just ambition. Raw, hot, humming in the stone. Poseidon appears beside you again, his expression already souring like seawater left in a copper bowl. They asked for a god, he mutters, a patron, a protector, and, of course, they couldn't decide. So the people did what people do best when caught between two terrifying cosmic forces. They held a contest. You feel it before you see her. A gust of wind slices across the plain sharp, precise, not a single strand of your hair dares to flutter. Then she arrives. Athena. Not floating, not glowing, just walking, but somehow the earth makes space for her with every step. She's armored, yes, but not like a warrior looking for battle. More like a professor who keeps her sword sharpened for office hours. Her eyes flick briefly to Poseidon, cool, unbothered, 2 degrees short of a smirk. You can tell she already thinks she's won. Poseidon grips his trident, but his knuckles aren't white, they're amused. She brought strategy, he says. I brought spectacle. And oh, what a spectacle. He steps forward, jams the trident into the ground, and the world opens. A spring bursts forth, right there in the rock. Water rushes out in torrents, sparkling, endless, powerful. The people gasp. Someone faints. Someone else starts building a water park. But then, a few brave souls taste it. Salt water. Not just ocean water, aggressively ocean water. Like, it carries the emotional baggage of 1,000 hurricanes. The crowd blinks, smile fades. No one wants to irrigate their crops with the tears of shipwrecked sailors. Poseidon doesn't flinch. It's a gift, he shrugs. It reminds you who owns the sea. And then Athena steps forward. No dramatic entrance, no wave-crushing roar, just calm. She kneels, digs a small hole in the rock, and plants a seed. It shouldn't work. This is stone, bare, dry. But it does. Before your eyes, a small green stem curls upward, then thickens, stretches, and becomes an olive tree. Broad leaves, silver green shimmer, branches that move like they already understand wind. And from it, fruit. The people fall silent. Poseidon exhales through his nose. I gave them power, he grumbles. She gave them shade. You watch the crowd. Some already sit beneath the tree, others touch the bark. Someone is tasting an olive and nodding approvingly, which, considering raw olives taste like bitter regret, is impressive. The gods say nothing. The people vote. And in the end, the city is named Athens. Not Poseidopolis, not Sea God Heights, Athens. Athena wins. Poseidon doesn't rage. He doesn't summon a tidal wave or split the Acropolis like a piñata. He just leaves, quietly, without a word. You follow him, half running to keep up, as the dream reshapes itself into crashing cliffs and foaming waves. The salt in the air now tastes like pride, wounded but still standing. She played it well, he says, finally. She knew what they wanted, I knew what they needed. There's a difference. He crouches at the edge of the cliff, trailing his fingers through the sea foam. They named their city after her, he says. But when their ships are sinking, when the winds go black and the sky vanishes, they pray to me. A pause, and I listen. He doesn't say that with spite. He says it with the weight of someone who knows that being needed isn't the same as being loved. There are no statues of me in the harbor, he says, but there are sacrifices. There are whispers. He turns to you, eyes sharper than any blade. You want to understand gods? Don't look at the altars. Look at the fears people don't speak out loud. He stands. The wind howls. And in the distance, on a high hill above the plain, you can just make out a tiny olive tree still growing, still green. But down here, the sea is churning. And Poseidon is smiling again. They say gods don't raise children. Poseidon would agree. He creates them. You're drifting again, this time in water, so still it might as well be glass. No sound, no current, just silence, so thick it presses against your eardrums like a warning. Then the surface breaks. Something enormous swirls past beneath you, a shadow the size of a house, and then another, and then eyes. More than two, more than should be. Watching you from below with the bored patience of something that could eat you, but doesn't really need to. Don't panic, Poseidon says from beside you, appearing without splash or warning. They're family. You freeze. And like most families, he adds, some of them are a lot. With a flick of his trident, the sea parts once more, not all the way to the seafloor this time, just enough to reveal a corridor of glowing blue. And from the depths, they begin to emerge. His children. Not the polite kind that show up to Sunday dinner. The kind that change tide patterns just by blinking. First comes Triton half-man, half-fish, fully unaware of personal space. He zips past with a conch in hand, blowing it like an overexcited marching band. He thinks it controls storms, Poseidon mutters. It's mostly just loud. Then there's Polyphemus, the Cyclops, yes, that Cyclops. One-eyed, surprisingly soft-spoken, and deeply misunderstood. He used to herd sheep, Poseidon says. Now he herds regrets. A massive tentacle gently brushes your leg. Don't scream. That's probably Scylla, Poseidon adds. One of the few I didn't mean to father, but paperwork gets blurry when sea monsters are involved. You float in stunned silence as more of them appear. A serpent the length of a city block slithers lazily past. A winged horse skims the waves above Pegasus, born from the blood of Medusa, a situation that Poseidon diplomatically does not explain. And then there are the quiet ones. The daughters, the nymphs, the voices in crashing waves that sailors claim are dreams. Each one shimmered from Poseidon's moods, a heartbreak here, a storm of passion there. They are not soldiers, he says. They are not mistakes, they are echoes. He points toward a cluster of shapes in the distance, some humanoid, others definitely not. They don't follow me, they remember me, that's different. You stare at them, dozens, maybe hundreds, some with coral crowns, others with skin like flowing seaweed or barnacled scales, all of them radiant, all of them powerful. And none of them looking for your approval. Poseidon watches them with a strange look, not pride, not guilt. Recognition. I'm not like Zeus, he says. I don't deny them. I don't turn them into animals or trees to erase them. I let them be. He shrugs. Of course, that means sometimes they try to sink cruise ships. A pause. Parenting is complicated. You find yourself floating near a smaller figure, now a childlike shape made entirely of water, its face shifting like waves. It stares up at you, curious, then dissolves with a giggle. That one, Poseidon murmurs, was born from a single sailor's final wish. You want to say something comforting, but what comfort do you offer a god who breathes grief as naturally as air? Instead, you ask, do they ever come back? The ones who drift too far? Poseidon looks toward the horizon. Some do, some become storms, others become legends, a few become me. And then the sea changes again. Not violently, subtly, like a mood swing caught in a mirror. He's drawing you back to shore, to surface, to air. But not before you take one last glance over your shoulder at the children of the deep, the mistakes and miracles, the monsters and the songs. You don't know if they waved goodbye, but the waves did. And Poseidon, standing tall beside you with trident in hand and salt in his bones, gives you one last warning before the sky returns. Remember them. Not all children want to be saved. You don't mean to land here. The ocean vanishes. The sky doesn't rise. Instead, stone, everywhere, cold, uneven, silent. You're standing in a cave that doesn't welcome light, where the air tastes like fear left out too long. Not rotten, just ancient. Don't move too quickly, Poseidon says. You freeze. Not because something will attack, he adds, but because she might remember. There's a hum in the air, low and bitter, like a memory someone keeps scraping across their teeth. Your footsteps echo like you're walking on bone, which, let's be honest, feels entirely possible right now. At the center of the chamber stands a statue. It used to be a man. Now, it's a cautionary tale with great cheekbones and a look of surprise forever frozen in marble. You know where you are. You know who she is. Medusa. The Gorgon. The monster. The cursed. The icon. And, Poseidon admits quietly, someone I failed. You turn to him. He's not looking at the statue, he's looking past it. Into some part of himself he rarely opens. The trident in his hand isn't glowing, it's dim, heavy. She wasn't born a monster, he says. She was a priestess, loyal, bright, too beautiful for her own safety, which, yes, you know, is the most tragic sentence in history. You wait. He doesn't dodge it. I found her in Athena's temple. A pause. A long one. She was praying. Another pause. You feel the stone walls listening now. I didn't take her by force, he says. I didn't mean for it to happen that way, but it happened, and in Olympus, intention is irrelevant. You breathe slowly, because the air feels like it's holding a verdict. She cried out to the wrong goddess, he says, and Athena answered not with justice, with transformation. And now here she is, Medusa. Somewhere in this cave, a woman turned into a warning sign, a punishment repackaged as villainy. They turned her hair into serpents, Poseidon mutters, made her face a weapon, and called it balance. He steps forward. They made her dangerous so they wouldn't have to feel guilty. You move through the cave with him now, careful, reverent. Around you, stone figures frozen mid-plea, some reaching, some covering their eyes, some clearly wearing sandals they regret dying in. She didn't want revenge, Poseidon says. She wanted to be left alone. You pass another statue, this one of a boar. Entirely stone, entirely confused. Poor guy probably just wandered in looking for truffles. She hid here, Poseidon continues, in shadows, with eyes that could end a conversation permanently. And then final you see her. Not a monster, not a beast. Just a woman, sitting on a rock. Alone. Her hair is a nest of serpents, yes, but they're not hissing, they're resting. Wrapped gently around her shoulders like living strands of sorrow. Her face is turned away, hidden by one arm. The other hand is sketching something in the dirt with a finger. It's a spiral, a seashell. She knows he's here. She knew the moment he stepped inside, but she doesn't look up. And Poseidon doesn't speak. He doesn't offer excuses or apologies or magic solutions. He just kneels, silent, humbled. The cave does not forgive, but it allows silence. You want to reach out, to say something comforting, but what words would work? You deserved better? The myths lied? She already knows. Eventually, Poseidon rises. She doesn't want vengeance, he says finally. She wants peace. That's the one thing Olympus never grants. He turns away, and so do you. As you leave the cave, the walls seem to soften, not welcoming, but less sharp. The statues fade into shadow, the air tastes like sea salt again, and behind you, the spiral drawn in the dirt remains. A shell, a symbol, a truth buried too long. And as Poseidon lifts his trident once more, he speaks not to you, but to her. "I never stop watching," he whispers. And somewhere in the darkness, a single serpent lifts its head just for a moment. Not in anger, but in acknowledgement. You're on land again. Dry, solid, problematic. The kind of land that doesn't welcome gods, only names. And tonight's name? Theseus. Poseidon says it like someone trying to remember if they left the stove on her, if they are the stove and everything is already on fire. You're in a city now, not a divine one, a very human one. Smells like ambition and wet marble. At the center of it, a boy, tan, tall, sword too big for his age, confidence even bigger. "That's him," Poseidon says, rubbing his temples. "My son, allegedly." You blink. Allegedly? I mean, yes, technically, his mother said so, but honestly, I've flooded lesser cities for less drama than this boy caused. You watch as Theseus shoves his way through a crowd, shouting about destiny and glory and someone named King Aegeus, who's either his dad or his dramatic side, quest unclear. What did he want, you ask? To be a hero, Poseidon sighs. What he needed was a nap. Flash forward. Theseus stands before a giant stone with a sword stuck in it. He yells something heroic, flexes muscles he hasn't earned yet, and lifts the weapon like he's just solved every problem in Greek society. Poseidon groans. That was step one. Then came the part where he decided to take the scenic route to Athens. The scenic route, as it turns out, is a murder tour. Theseus begins traveling up the coast, defeating bandits, wrestlers, and one guy who literally tied people to beds and sawed off the parts that didn't fit. You flinch. Yeah, Poseidon mutters, therapy wasn't a thing yet. But here's the thing, people loved him for it. Each time he defeated a villain, the crowd cheered. Songs were written, statues carved. And through it all, Theseus never once thanked the sea god who might have, possibly, maybe been his dad. He left me on red, Poseidon says flatly. And then came Crete. You know the story. Or you think you do. Theseus, the Minotaur, the Labyrinth, Ariadne. But Poseidon tells it differently. He didn't go to rescue the others, he says. He went for the glory, the hero pose, the mythos, and to make it worse, he flirted with the princess. Ariadne, beautiful, sharp, smarter than him in every measurable way. She gave him the string, Poseidon says, and he left her on an island. Wait, why, you ask? Because he's Theseus, Poseidon replies, and bad decisions are his superpower. You follow the dream through the twisting corridors of the labyrinth. You watch as Theseus defeats the Minotaur, looking surprised that it wasn't a dragon or a god. You see him emerge victorious, shirtless, smug, holding the severed head like it's a party favor. Then you see him forget to change the sails on his ship. A detail, a stupid one. But when his father, King Aegeus, sees the black sails returning, he assumes Theseus is dead and jumps off a cliff in despair. You wince. That can't be real. Poseidon shrugs. We all make choices. Then he says something you don't expect. I loved him. You look up. He's staring at the waves. Quiet now. I hoped he'd be better than me, Poseidon says, that he'd be a symbol of what could be, not just storms and destruction, but strength with direction. He sighs. But I gave him my power, not my patience. And now, Theseus is gone. The city is celebrating. The bards are composing. And Poseidon? He's already fading back into the tide. He was a disaster, he admits, but he was my disaster. The waves roll in a little harder. The wind tugs at your sleeves. And in the distance, the name Theseus echoes across the Sharnot as a blessing, not as a curse. Just a story. Another myth raised by Sol. Another son, Poseidon, couldn't save from himself. By now, you've noticed a pattern. People offend Poseidon. Poseidon remembers. And when Poseidon remembers, he doesn't send a strongly worded scroll. He sends oceans. You're aboard a ship now, but not the glorious kind with golden sails and a loyal crew singing about honor. This one smells like mold and goat sweat. The mast creaks like it's reconsidering its life choices. And standing at the bow? Odysseus. He's everything. Theseus wasn't cunning, composed, probably in possession of an actual plan. And Poseidon hates that. Smart men are dangerous, Poseidon mutters beside you, arms crossed. They think cleverness is immunity. You watch as Odysseus shouts orders. His men scramble. They're headed home from Troy, supposedly. But fate, as it turns out, is bad at straight lines. And Poseidon? He's not done with him. It started with one stupid act. One very stupid act. Odysseus and his crew had stumbled upon an island, found a cave, cheese, wine, sheep. You guessed it, Polyphemus' cave, the Cyclops, Poseidon's son. They eat his food, drink his wine, then blind him. In their defense, Polyphemus was planning to snack on them, but still, he could have left quietly, Poseidon says, but no, he had to brag. Because as Odysseus sails away, victorious, he yells back, "I'm Odysseus, son of Laertes from Ithaca." Poseidon closes his eyes like he's still hearing it. Imagine punching my son in the eye and then giving me your home address. You feel the air shift, the wind die, the sea pull taut like a held breath. And then it begins. Not a storm. Not yet. First a detour. Then another. Then another. You watch as Odysseus sails in circles, past islands that shouldn't exist, past singing monsters, drugged lotus eaters, cannibals, floating cows. His men die, one by one, some by hubris, some by hunger, some just by being on the wrong boat at the wrong time. He thought he was solving riddles, Poseidon says. I was pulling threads. And the years roll on. 1 year, 2, 5, 10. Odysseus drifts, ages, hardens. He cries on beaches. He screams into storms. He misses Ithaca the way lungs miss air. But Poseidon never lets him drown. That would be too kind, the god says. Drowning is final. Wandering is a lesson. You see Odysseus meet goddesses who want to keep him. Offers of immortality, of comfort, of forgetting. He says no. He says home. And Poseidon? He throws another wave. This wasn't vengeance, he says. It was education. I wanted him to understand the sea isn't a puzzle. It's a presence. You glance at him. Did he ever understand? Poseidon stares out at the endless blue. No, he says quietly, but he respected it. Eventually, Odysseus does return. Battered, older, no fanfare, no parade, just a man crawling back to a wife who waited and a son who barely remembered his face. Poseidon doesn't say anything for a while. Then, I let him go. You blink. You mean, I could have kept him drifting forever, but even the ocean knows when a lesson has been learned. He frowns. Sort of. The wind picks up again. The boat vanishes. You're standing on a shoreline now, watching the tide roll in and out. And Poseidon sighs. Odysseus was clever, he says, but in the end he was small. All of them are, and still they try to name the sea after themselves. He plunges the trident into the sand. The earth trembles just a little. You don't conquer the ocean, he says, you survive it. The waves retreat one last time. and in their wake, silence. Just foam, salt, and the ghost of a man who took the long way home. It's calm now. Too calm. The kind of calm that makes fishermen whisper old prayers and birds change direction mid-flight. The horizon is flat, stretched tight like someone forgot to finish painting it. You stand knee-deep in still water, and the sky above you looks expectant. And then it blows. Not the wind. Not a scream. A horn. Low, echoing. Impossible to tell where it came from until it wraps around your chest like thunder turned into silk and yells, "The ocean is awake." That's him, Poseidon says, with something between fondness and a migraine. Triton, his son, his messenger, his noise. You turn as the sea bulges, not rises, flexes. Water splits in a spiraling whirl, and from it emerges a figure that looks like someone took a merman and said, "Now add reverb." He's vast, half human, half fish, all volume. His body glistens like polished obsidian, scales catching light that isn't there. In one hand, he holds a conch shell the size of your head. In the other, nothing. He doesn't need it. He is the storm. Do not ask him to whisper, Poseidon sighs. Triton doesn't speak. He toots, proudly, gleefully, once, twice. The sound rolls over the water like a living beast. Immediately, the sky answers. Clouds rush in from every direction, dark and bruised with lightning. Waves begin to churn like they've been personally offended. The water around your legs goes from a lazy lap to a shove in less than 10 seconds. Triton raises the horn again. No, Poseidon warns. He does it anyway. But a full-on gale explodes across the ocean. Fish leap out of the water in panic. Somewhere far off, a ship decides it has made several bad life choices. Seagulls evacuate. You grab onto a floating logor, possibly a decorative piece of shipwreck, and try to stay upright. Triton grins. Sharp teeth, sharp cheekbones, sharp everything. He's not malicious, Poseidon explains, barely audible above the chaos. He just lacks subtlety. The storm peaks, howling like a pack of wolves learning to harmonize. Then, just as suddenly, Triton stops. The horn lowers. The sea drops into silence, like someone hit a cosmic mute button, and you're left dripping, stunned, and probably missing at least one shoe. Poseidon claps once, slow. Well done, son. You've alarmed most of the Aegean. Triton bows, dramatically. He doesn't say a word, but you feel the vibe of, "You're welcome." Why does he do that, you ask? Poseidon smirks. Because I told him not to. You glance at the horn. What even is that? The first sound the ocean ever made, Poseidon replies, captured in shell. You stare. That's poetic. It's also extremely loud. Triton hovers nearby now, gently stirring the water with the tip of his tail. He looks at you. There's no menace in it, just curiosity. You get the sense that if he liked you, he might accidentally uproot a coastline as a gift. Some of my children are hurricanes, Poseidon says. Others are lullabies. Triton is both depending on the weather. You nod, slowly. Is that what makes him special? No, Poseidon says. What makes him special is that I trust him. The words land like anchors. Because for all Poseidon's sons, those lost to pride, to war, to their own reflections, Triton stayed. He never tried to take a kingdom, Poseidon says. Never demanded temples, just wanted to be the echo in the sea. Triton floats closer, offers you the horn. You panic. Poseidon chuckles. Don't blow it, you're not stormproof. Triton nods, understanding. Then turns, flips effortlessly through the air like a dolphin caught in a ballet, and dives back into the depths. No splash, just a shimmer, and a long, lingering echo. Boah! Fading. Not gone. Just waiting. Poseidon watches the ripples settle, a rare softness in his face. He was never meant to rule, he says, but he knew how to listen. Then he turns to you, eyes sharp again. Come on, he says. There's a story about a horse and a woman who loved flowers, and somehow those two things are related. You hesitate. Are we finally getting to Pegasus? He sighs. Not yet. First, we talk about Demeter. There are things you expect from Poseidon. Waves. Storms. Monsters with names that sound like indigestion. But a horse? That one catches you off guard. You're in a meadow now no sea in sight. Just wide rolling hills and grass that dances like it remembers music. The wind smells like honey and fresh dirt, and for the first time, Poseidon seems awkward. He kicks at a stone, clears his throat, doesn't look at you. You know how it is, he mutters. You like someone. You want to impress her, so you invent the entire concept of the horse. You blink. Is that a metaphor? Poseidon sighs. Number, I literally created the first horse. You wait. He doesn't elaborate. So now you're here, in a field that's buzzing with bees and springtime lust, about to witness the god of oceans try to flirt with a goddess of flowers. Her name is Demeter. You see her nautile, radiant, somehow glowing in shades of wheat and sunrise. She's walking barefoot through the field, trailing her fingers through golden blossoms. Every step she takes, something blooms. Every glance she gives, the sun seems to lean in closer. Poseidon, meanwhile, is sweating. Metaphorically, or maybe literally, hard to tell with gods. She liked peaceful things, he says, order, growth, patience. He rubs the back of his neck. And I showed up. You watch the scene unfold. Poseidon appears in front of Demeter, not in storm mode, but cleaned up, in his I'm a gentle god outfit. Hair tamed, beard braided, no earthquakes, just nervous confidence. I brought you something, he says in the memory. Demeter turns, raises an eyebrow. A storm? Number. He reaches into the glissando, there it is. A creature steps forward, tall, majestic, unbelievably graceful. The first horse. Its mane flows like river currents, its eyes shimmer like deep water, and its hooves don't thud, they glide. You stare. That's actually impressive, you admit. Poseidon beams a little, right? It was supposed to represent strength, beauty, freedom, everything I thought she'd love. He pauses. She hated it. Wait, what? She thought I was showing off, he says, which, okay, technically I was, but with good intentions. You watch Demeter in the memory, crossing her arms. A horse? She asks flatly. Poseidon nods. It tramples my barley, she replies. The horse sneezes on her sandals. Poseidon winces. Not my best moment. But he didn't stop there. No, Poseidon doubled down. He summoned a whole herd of horses. Stallions with manes like waterfalls, mares with hooves of pearl, foals born from sea foam and sunlight. And Demeter? She turned into a mare herself and galloped off into the forest. Poseidon went after her, also turned into a stallion. Because Greek mythology, you raise a hand. Wait, did you? Yes, he says. I caught her. You stare. And that's how we got the horse goddess twins, Arion, the immortal stallion, and Despoina, the goddess of mysteries. Demeter wasn't thrilled. You're not sure how to respond to any of this. Poseidon shrugs. In hindsight, turning into a horse might have been too much. Just a little, you say. He laughs. But then he quiets. I didn't understand what she wanted, he says. She needed peace. I brought chaos wrapped in horsepower. You both watch as the memory fades, Demeter vanishing into a grove of cypress trees, the horses wandering off into myth, and Poseidon standing in a field of wildflowers, holding the reins of something that was never meant to be controlled. She never forgave me, he says softly, but the horses stayed. And now you hear them. Far off, thundering across unseen plains, galloping across generations, carrying warriors, pulling chariots, racing gods. Every time you see a horse, Poseidon says, remember, It was never meant for war. It was a gift. The sea might be his kingdom. But in that single act of creation hoof, mane, thunder, he carved out something more tender. Even if no one noticed, you're in a hall now. Massive, empty, echoing like a museum closed for renovations no one's coming back to finish. It isn't underwater. It isn't above the clouds. It's somewhere in between. The marble columns reach so high you'd need a prayer just to find the ceiling. The floor is polished obsidian. Everything gleams but coldly, like it's been polished more by absence than by touch. And at the far end, a throne. Imposing, ornate, and completely, utterly unoccupied. Poseidon stands beside you, staring at it. That was supposed to be mine. You don't speak, you don't have to. The silence here is doing the talking. When the war ended, the one with the Titan Sea drew lots, Poseidon says. Zeus took the sky, Hades the underworld. I got the sea. He pauses. I didn't want the sea. You turn to him. I wanted this. You both look at the throne again. It's carved from deep sea stone rimmed in gold with mother of pearl inlays that shimmer like a mirage, but there's dust on the seat, cracks in the armrests. Like it was designed for glory and then abandoned for politics. I was second born, he says, stronger than Hades, calmer than Zeus, but they were louder. He runs a hand along the side of the throne, not possessive, just remembering. I built cities, controlled storms, tamed monsters, I fathered nations. He chuckles. And yet, when people talk about Olympus, you know where this is going. Zeus with his thunderbolts and affairs. Hades with his shadows and secrets. And Poseidon? He gets waves. I am the third god, he says. Always third. His voice isn't angry, it's something worse. Resigned. They call me moody, he continues. Petty, volatile, but no one ever asks why I rage. He turns to you, and for once, his eyes aren't stormy. They're tired. Do you know what it's like to be a god without a home? To be remembered only when things go wrong? You do now, because this throne is beautiful, but it's also dust-covered, unclaimed, cold. A seat built for a king who never quite got the crown. Poseidon sits down, and the hall shifts. The air grows heavier, the walls hum, the marble warms just a little, like the place is saying finally. But Poseidon just sighs. I'm not angry anymore, he says. I've sunk cities, raised continents, made peace with my exile. He taps the armrest once, and an image ripples in the air. Temples cracked and forgotten, coastlines once sacred, now littered with cruise ships and sunburnt tourists. No one builds shrines to water anymore, he says, unless it has a swim-up bar. You try to offer something comfort, maybe, but Poseidon raises a hand. It's fine, he says. Mortals forget. That's what they do. He stands again. The throne groans, not from weight, from memory, from emptiness. Poseidon brushes the dust from his hands. The hall dims. Zeus has his lightning, he says. Hades has his shadows, but me? He walks to the center of the room, opens his palm. Water spirals out of nothing, a globe of endless depth, galaxies of tide and current spinning in his hand. I have the tides, I rise and fall, I disappear then return, and when I'm gone, the world notices. He closes his fist. The water vanishes. I don't need a throne, he says softly. I am the sea, and the sea bows to no one. You follow him out of the hall, leaving the throne behind, silent, beautiful, and still empty. And as the door closes, you hear it creak softly, not in protest, in recognition. The sea is never still for long, but sometimes it sulks. You're standing on a cliff now, just high enough to feel the ocean stretching below like a mood it hasn't decided on yet. Waves crash with a little too much attitude. Wind whips your face not playfully, but with a kind of passive-aggressive flair, like it's punishing you for something you didn't know you said. Poseidon appears beside you, of course, but quieter this time. No trident, no thunder, just a god staring out at his own reflection with the expression of someone watching an old friend laugh with someone else. "They used to sing to me," he murmurs. "The mortals, the sailors, the islanders, offerings tossed into the foam, names whispered into waves. You wait. And now," he gestures at the horizon, "they name yachts after me. That's what's left." You try to respond, but the wind eats your words. It's that kind of scene. "You know what no one tells you about immortality," Poseidon says. "You get replaced." He walks to the edge of the cliff, letting the salt sting his skin. First, they forget. Then they repurpose. Then they pretend you were never there to begin with. You follow his gaze. There, in the distance, the outline of a cruise ship absurdly lit, music blaring, slicing through the sea like it owns the map. Tourists shout. Someone throws a plastic cup into the water. Poseidon watches. The wave beneath that ship begins to shift. You feel the pressure before the sound like the ocean just inhaled sharply through its teeth. And then crack a swell rises. Not high, not violent, just purposeful. Enough to rattle the ship, enough to remind. Poseidon doesn't smile. "This isn't anger," he says, "it's envy." You blink. "The ocean gets jealous?" He nods. You'd be surprised what silence resents. And then the confession slips out of him like steam from a vent long sealed. "I watch the sky." You pause. "The sky?" "I watch it kiss everything," he says. "The mountains, the trees, the rooftops, the lovers on balconies. The clouds drift by and everything leans upward, hungry for warmth." His voice drops. "But no one leans into the sea. They flinch, they fear, they call me cruel. And maybe I am, but only because they never stay long enough to know I'm more than teeth." You sit with that. The sea has no arms, no eyes, no lullabies that don't come with undertow. But maybe, just maybe, it feels... "Sometimes I churn the currents," Poseidon says, "not to destroy, just to be felt, to remind them I'm still here, that I loved them first." The wind dies. The waves slow. And Poseidon, god of oceans, earthshaker, horse creator, stormbringer, looks tired again. "Even gods want to be held," he says quietly. "But when you're made of waves, no one stays long enough to hold you." The cruise ship disappears into the horizon, oblivious. The sea is calm now, but not peaceful. There's a difference. You look at him. "What happens when the sea stops caring?" you ask. He doesn't answer. He just lifts his hand, lets a single drop of salt water roll down his palm like a tear that never got permission to fall. And somewhere deep beneath you, the ocean sighs. Not in rage, in longing. You expect thunder, or waves, or something loud when Poseidon's angry. But when the earth moves, that's when he's quiet. You're in a temple now, or what used to be one. The roof's gone, the columns lean like they're whispering secrets before they fall. Vines climb through the cracks, birds nest where prayers used to echo, and in the center, a fault line, thin, delicate, like a scar someone stopped trying to hide. Poseidon walks its edge with bare feet, the ground oddly respectful beneath him. "Do you know why I shake the earth?" he asks. You open your mouth some guess about wrath or punishment or tectonic plates, but he cuts you off with a look. Because sometimes, he says, it's the only way I'm heard. The trident appears in his hand, not summoned, just remembered. He taps it gently against the stone. The earth quivers. Not violently, just a small, shivering breath. Like the ground itself is flinching from something it can't explain. "I am the god of oceans," he continues, "but beneath the sea is stone." He kneels, presses his palm to the ground. Beneath the tides, beneath the coral, beneath the light, there's always earth. Silent, waiting, cracked from pressure. You crouch beside him. The air hums. The silence tightens. "I don't rage randomly," Poseidon says. I don't wake up and decide to toss cities into the sea for fun. Earthquakes are messages. He closes his eyes. When no one listens to your storms, you speak with fractures. And suddenly, you understand. He doesn't just rule water. He rules tension. Built up, pressed down, ignored until it erupts. Mortals build and build and build, he says, then call it a tragedy when the earth remembers it's alive. A pause. I don't want destruction, he says, but I need them to feel me, to pause, to look down and realize the ground is not theirs, it's borrowed. He stands again. The temple groans around you. You glance up as a small tremor knocks a piece of ceiling loose. It lands inches away off thud, cloud of dust. Not punishment, just punctuation. You think I care about revenge, he says. Revenge is for gods who haven't been forgotten. And that's when you hear it. Not outside. Below. The sound of shifting plates, deep in the crust of the world, like bones adjusting, like a sigh stretched across continents. Sometimes, Poseidon says, I shake the world not to break it, but to remind it I'm still underneath everything they've built. You look around. The cracked statues, the broken steps, the offerings long since weathered to dust. And you feel it too. Not rage, not chaos, but presence. Deep, constant, waiting. Poseidon places his trident back into the ground and the tremors fade. Tell them, he says, when the earth moves, it's not always warning. Sometimes it's a god whispering, remember me. You leave the temple in silence. And behind you, the fault line glows for a heartbeat, then sleeps again. For now, you've walked through storms. You've drifted through memories. You've listened to a god confess the weight of being vast. And now, you're here, on a shoreline so still it could be a painting. The kind that hangs above a fireplace and makes guests say things like, it's haunting. No wind, no birds. Just the soft, unhurried rhythm of waves touching sand the way old friends touch shoulders gently, like they've done it 1,000 times before and still don't quite know how to say goodbye. Poseidon stands with you, not in armor, not with lightning rippling behind his shoulders, just barefoot, in silence, watching the water. This is it, he says softly, the place where I stop. You don't understand. I never walk past this point, he continues. I could, but I don't. He gestures to the line where sea foam kisses earth, where the ocean always almost crosses into the world of roads and sandals and grilled fish. I've been everywhere, he says, under every ocean, through every trench, inside every sunken city. He pauses, but never just here. You look at him, really look, and he's tired. Not in a mortal way, not like he needs a nap or a snack. In the way statues tire of being ignored. In the way stars fade from stories but keep burning anyway. He kneels at the water's edge, touches it once. The ocean responds, curling around his fingers like a loyal hound, but he doesn't command it, he just listens. You've seen who I am, he says, the creator, the destroyer, the jealous brother, the forgotten king. A breath. But underneath all of that, he trails off. And then he looks at you. Eyes not made of waves or storms or mythology. Just eyes. If I am the sea, he says, then I am always moving. I can never stay, never be still, never be held. His voice drops to a whisper. And that's the curse. The waves roll in again quietly. Not to take him, just to be near. He reaches into the tide and lifts something into your hand. A shell. Small, white, cracked just slightly on one edge. Keep it, he says, not as a souvenir, as proof that I existed, that you heard me. The sea shimmers, and something in you aches. Not because this is the end, but because some part of you knows she won't be back. Not like this, not this open, not this human. You step back. The wind returns. Gently. No fanfare. Poseidon doesn't move. He just stands. Where the water meets the world, where no one stays long. You hear his voice one last time, drifting like salt in the breeze. I don't want to be worshipped, he says. I just want to be remembered. Then he walks into the tide, not sinking, not vanishing, just becoming what he always was. The ocean, all of it. The waves soften, the sky dims, and the shell in your hand hums like a lullaby long lost to shipwrecks. You breathe. In. Out. The sea breathes with you. So you sit there, on the quiet shore, letting the tide reach for your toes, letting the memory settle in your bones, letting Poseidon go not with fear, with understanding, and for the first time all night, you feel still. End of story. Sweet dreams.